Hey everybody, this is Party Elite, and Creative Assembly have asked me to make this video showcasing one of the great High Elf quest battles coming in Total War Warhammer 2. The Ratmen step from the shadows, one wearing the war crown at a jaunty angle to deliberately mock the High Elves. Whether the creatures were in league with the Terrorgeist all along, or are just rampant opportunists, it does not matter. What is far more important is that the war crown is returned to its rightful owner. The Skaven may have Teclis and his hosts surrounded, but the Ratmen must now deal with one of the most powerful mages to ever have lived. I am Party Elite, commanding the High Elves in this legendary quest battle from Total War Warhammer 2.
Steel yourselves, my kin, for now we fight not just to reclaim the war crown for the honor of Saphery, but to vanquish the children of the Horned God. They will come at us mercilessly, but know that every Skaven is a coward. They're only emboldened in numbers, and so we must cut them down. The creatures that remain will become ever more craven. Let me deal with the bat.
Alright, after that rather rousing speech, you'll notice that the High Elves are caught off guard. This is an ambush, so they haven't formed up just yet. Let's take a look at the forces they've brought to bear before they do form up. We've got the Flamespire Phoenix, of course, the Great Eagle with it, and then we've got 3 units of Illyrian Reavers up front. Then with them we do have the Lothern Sea Guard, 5 units of Elven Archers, 4 units of Elven Spearmen, a unit of Swordmasters of Hoeth, alongside Teclis, and Zoltar, the Lore Master of Hoeth, as well. The initial Skaven forces seem pretty small. We've got 2 units of Skaven Slave Slingers, 4 units of Clan Rats, 2 units of Plague Monks who are anti-infantry. Then we have the Warpfire Thrower as well, a very dangerous ranged unit, all led by Arkling the Warlord. But this is an ambush, so there are some ambushing forces. Of course, there are 2 contingents coming in from either flank. Over on my right flank, we do have 5 units of Skaven Slaves, while on my left flank we have 3 units of Skaven Slave with spears and 2 units of Skaven Slaves. So a pretty dangerous situation there for cavalry, but the Illyrian Reavers do need to get involved nice and early to try and shut down this initial aggression, while the Flamespire Phoenix and the Great Eagle will join in on that action as well. Meanwhile, the front lines are forming up as well. So let's take a look at this. We've got all of our archers forming up back here. The Spearmen will form a line right in front of them, of course, to keep these guys safe, while the Swordmasters of Hoeth in just a moment's time will be shifted to form up over here to match up with the Plague Monks and have anti-infantry deal with anti-infantry. Meanwhile, Teclis is being brought back into some safety, while Zoltar can be used in melee, so is being pulled back to form up with that front line as well, while the Lothern Sea Guard is being pushed in to form up as well, but these guys will actually be facing back as sort of a rear guard, because of course there are these ambushing forces coming in. So that's the overall layout of this High Elf army, able to get into position before the action actually begins. Now let's take a look at how this all breaks down. The Illyrian Reavers are pushing aggressively, trying to get a full surround on these Skaven Slaves nice and early, shut them down, scare them off before they're able to do any real damage, morale or otherwise. And you'll see as the enemy army is pushing forward as well, we do have the Elven Archers pushing in with their superior range. They're able to get that shot off first because they do have a range of 180, while the Skaven Slave Slingers only have a range of 120. So that first volley goes off, advantage to the Elves, of course, and it does a significant amount of damage, a tremendous amount of damage, instantaneously dropping these Skaven Slave Slingers to about half health and reducing their morale to next to nothing, ensuring that that one range unit is completely taken care of. And taking care of range units first is always a priority, in my opinion, to make sure that morale damage has been taken off the field, no matter how little physical damage they might do. So as that unit of Skaven Slave Slingers is being taken care of, back here we have the Illyrian Reavers pushing in towards these Skaven Slaves, while we do have the Flamespire Phoenix as well, pushing in and dropping the Wake of Fire, getting some bombardments in there, getting a decent amount of damage before diving into melee as well, while up front, once again, the High Elves do decide to target this other unit of Skaven Slave Slingers who do get a couple of shots off, but again, it'll just take a couple of volleys before they are completely shut down, an absolute non-issue, devastated, destroyed, removed from the field. Meanwhile, back there, you'll see we already have some of these units routing. They haven't been shattered just yet, but with a full surround and the terror brought in by the Flamespire Phoenix, we have all of these Skaven Slaves completely giving up. Now, keep in mind, these guys are expendable, so that means that when they're running away, higher tier units don't really care, but any other expendable unit does get affected when an expendable unit is routing. So this is absolutely significant for me, shutting this down before having to take care of this. And meanwhile, I do notice the Spearmen starting to push up, or rather the spear rats, I should say, starting to push up, and so I send my Lothern Sea Guard in to take care of the spears first, because that's the only threatening unit in this contingent back here. I do have to keep an eye on my cavalry now. Meanwhile, up front, you'll notice I did change my attention here, focus down on the warp fire throwers as well, making sure that none of the enemy range units are able to get any damage done. And this is when the vampire count fell bats decide to show up as well. This is just the first of them, but there are plenty of bats coming in, and that's extremely threatening because I have a lot of archers that will get shut down by that air force, of course. But right now we do still have to focus on this central engagement over here. This is what's the pending threat right now. So you'll notice we do focus down on these plague monks next. They are anti-infantry, and I'd like to get rid of that strength before they're actually able to engage the front line. So you'll see they drop very quickly. Of course, they're very poorly armored, so they do get hit pretty hard. Flock of Doom comes in from Teclis as well, trying to spread some of that love, spread that damage, take care of both of these units of plague monks, and as they do charge in, pretty weakly if I might add, I do have my Swordmasters of Hoeth pushing in to try and get a nice flanking maneuver in there as well. A very simple maneuver, trying to get that morale damage in and shut these guys down nice and early, but you'll notice that through all that ranged fire, they actually get taken care of before the Swordmasters are even able to get involved. Meanwhile, all the way at the back there, you'll notice the Illyrian Reavers are just doing cleanup right now, chasing after some of these Skaven slaves, making sure they do get routed and shattered completely, while the Flamespire Phoenix as well as the Great Eagle do decide to get involved up front here. Meanwhile, at this point in time, I do have to change my priorities as the Skaven slaves back here are pushing ever closer. I do have to prepare myself for a melee engagement. Thankfully, once again, the Lothern Sea Guard are relatively capable in melee, so I'm not too concerned about that. And while the Plague Monks up here are being taken care of, you'll notice very threateningly all of these Felbats are pushing in, and there is a mighty Terrorgeist all the way at the back there as well. So at this point in time, it does get a little nerve-wracking. We've got Zoltar diving in against Arklin here, trying to take care of him, trying to take care of Skaven leadership and get them to flee from the field, while we now focus down on some of these Felbats, while the Flamespire Phoenix as well as the Great Eagle are pushing in to try and shut these guys down before they're able to get involved, while down here the Lothern Sea Guard are being engaged by the Skaven Slave with spears as well as the regular Skaven Slave. So a very dangerous situation, while the Felbats are dropping in as well, and I have to split my ranged contingent, make sure they stay safe and they don't get fully engaged, and that they don't shut down entirely. Meanwhile, you'll notice the Flamespire Phoenix as well as the Great Eagle are getting very involved in trying to shut down these Felbats, just to try and minimize the losses on these archers, not just in lives, but also in the time they spend firing. I can't have them be engaged. They are extremely important to my strategy here. Meanwhile, back here you'll see the Illyrian Reavers are more or less done cleaning up the Skaven slaves, chasing them down, getting them all to shatter more or less, and then being able to return to this central engagement and provide some support where they're absolutely needed. Now you'll see the Terrorgeist is pushing in as well, getting very aggressive, able to dive in, and some of these Skaven Slave Slingers as well as the Warpfire Thrower are willing to come back into the fray, but I'm now focusing down on the Terrorgeist, opening shots off, trying to shut it down before it's able to dive in, but of course it's extremely powerful. It dives in right into my Flamespire Phoenix and starts doing a tremendous amount of damage. Meanwhile, back here you'll notice a couple of things going on. The Skaven Slave units have been hit by the Flock of Doom, and I'm sending my Illyrian Reavers in for a rear charge. Spears be damned, I need to get that rear charge in there, cause that morale damage, and get these guys to break. Again, they have very low morale, so one rear charge might do it, and we'll send these cavalry units in and try and get that work done. You'll see they do start to fall apart almost instantaneously. Another charge from the second unit of Illyrian Reavers, and these guys have given up. They're on their way out the field. Meanwhile, the Warpfire Thrower is opening shots off, getting a decent amount of damage in, and I turn my attention once again to these ranged units, again trying to scare them off, scare off the Skaven Slave Slingers, scare off the Warpfire Thrower, and make sure that they don't do too much work. Meanwhile, the Felbats are keeping me occupied. Very risky over here, while Teclis down here as well being occupied by these Felbats. Extremely dangerous situation, but of course, with martial prowess active, even these archers are able to get engaged. You'll notice over here, I do send the Lothern Sea Guard to engage the Skaven Slave with spears, and I send the Illyrian Reavers in again to get a nice side charge and try and shatter these guys once and for all. You'll see now, once again, my Lothern Sea Guard have been freed up. They are now again able to open shots off, and in the middle here you'll see Spirit Leech on Arkling the Warlord, again trying to focus in on the extremely low Skaven leadership. I want them to shatter, I want them to leave. This is a very dangerous situation for me. I am getting overwhelmed right now, so a little bit of focus fire should help tremendously. Meanwhile, the Terrorgeist here diving into my Illyrian Reavers. Not a good situation for those Reavers, of course. The Terrorgeist is anti-large, armor piercing, doing a lot of work back there, even with martial prowess active. But you'll see over here, we're doing a great deal of damage to these Felbats, focusing in on them, focusing on Arkling as well, using the Lore Master of Hoeth to get a decent amount of melee damage in there too. Though the Warlord is coming out on top right now, that's nothing a little bit of focus fire can't take care of. You'll notice we do have a lot of Felbats pushing in as well, but we do have that front line of spears providing a lot of support. Meanwhile, back here, Teclis is getting some support from these spears as well, while these Felbats decide to dive into these archers. But once more, I'm not entirely concerned. They do have martial prowess active, and you'll see as the Warlord does give up on the situation, decides to shatter. The entire Skaven army has given up. They are all shattering, and now I can focus in on the Terrorgeist using my archers and my magic. So you'll see I do have Spirit Leech going down from the Lore Master of Hoeth, and I have the Enfeebling Foe coming in from Teclis as well, making sure that the Terrorgeist is doing minimal damage when it's engaged, and otherwise being very quickly taken care of between Spirit Leech and all of that range fire. You'll notice the Terrorgeist does shatter, but it does keep on fighting despite being shattered, quickly dropping in health, but willing to kill a few more High Elves before dying. So I focus down on it, making sure that it doesn't do too much damage. I do want to keep as many Elves alive as possible. It decides to get involved with the Great Eagle, which is just not nice. So again, focus fire, trying to take the Terrorgeist down while the rest of the army is fleeing. Not much of a problem at all. You can see all of these arrows coming in. Between the Elven Archers and the Lothern Sea Guard, you can see the Terrorgeist gets completely taken care of, falling now to its death. And so, a close victory for the High Elves, having lost 249 honorable warriors on this day against an onslaught of over 3,500 rats and bats. The power of martial prowess was on full display in this battle, allowing even archers to hold a line when necessary, while the Lothern Sea Guard showed their value by protecting the rear against a horde of ratmen. The superior range of elven archers meant the enemy ranged units only managed 5 kills before being routed off the field, and the combination of magic helped more or less neutralize the Terrorgeist threat. This has been Party Elite, showing you just a fraction of what's to come later this month. Make sure to subscribe to the Total War YouTube channel for more content as the hype train arrives at the end of the line.